Hey.
How are you?
Good. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So excited to talk to you.
I am excited to talk with you.
So what does it feel like? I mean, just physically.
You know, long days. I start every day. I work out every morning.
And are you just exhausted at the end of the day?
You know, your body doesn't like when you first wake up in the morning.
Yep. Workout just gets you going.
And it gets me going every morning.
Dominating globally,
Yeah.
right? Do you ever geek out at all?
All the time.
So tell me about that.
So my mother was a scientist,
Yes.
right? So I grew up in the lab.
That's
research.
amazing.
And part of it is how we think about deficits. We cannot say government spends too much.
I agree.
We have to ask, are we spending it in a smart way?
Just like a regular business.
But this is exactly right.
I've known Donald Trump 25 years, but over the last 25 years, he's just lost it.
I don't think he pays attention to the details, and you can't be president of the United States.
Unless you pay attention to the details.
Yeah, that's fine if he wants to, just give speeches in random places for random reasons, but to talk about such significant policy.
It makes no sense to me whatsoever. To me, I think Donald Trump is the Grinch that stole Christmas. And now all of a sudden, your vision of everything you wanted to have for Christmas is gone. Donald Trump just crushed it.
16 Nobel laureates have all examined our policies. Mine will strengthen the economy. His will incite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year, Mark.
I don't think he's ever run a company or business. He has no clue. And the worst part is, he doesn't care.
And that's something he doesn't get.
No.
He doesn't understand. He has lost it.
The things that you're doing matter. I'm getting more and more people emailing me, calling me, saying, maybe she really understands what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had.
To be like Hitler's generals. Don't move. Oh.
It's not the only thing Trump has in common with some of the worst figures in history. Benito Mussolini, former fascist dictator in Italy, by using terms like the enemy within and calling immigrants vermin who are poisoning the blood, connects so clearly to some of the worst people in human history.
Directly from Hitler, Mussolini, actually Stalin used language like that.
In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within.
Mehek, our new poll shows nearly half the country say they think former President Trump is a fascist.
Finds how Trump fits the definition of a fascist, how Trump praised Adolf Hitler, demeaned American war heroes. He also calls Trump a man who would govern like a dictator if allowed.
And a former president who has no regard for rule of law or the Constitution.
Donald Trump's former chief of staff and retired General John Kelly with a blistering rebuke of the Republican nominee for president, calling him a fascist with no concept for the rule of law or the Constitution. Trump would praise Nazi leader Adolf Hitler, who orchestrated the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and caused World War II.
General Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, called Trump, quote, a fascist to the core. The most dangerous person ever. He's a total fascist. He is now the most dangerous person to this country.
And even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens.
If you don't want to be called a fascist, stop constantly acting out the dictionary definition of fascist.
Practical definition of a fascist is admiration for Hitler.
Fascist to the core. A former president being called fascist to the core, a fascist to the core.
Iran is a fascist country in their own way. So is China, so is Russia, Saudi Arabia, you could say also. The world seems to be dividing between the good guy countries, the democratic countries, and these autocracies. If your guy gets in, we're going to be on the wrong side of this one.
Hitler and fascism, what would it mean to have someone like that as our commander-in-chief? Hitler admiring fascists.
More like Hitler's generals. Given the chance, Trump would rule as a dictator himself.
Everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life
And
philosophy.
let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within.
Tell people to do things and they would do it, and not really bother what the legalities were.
Anyone who refuses to bend a
Kelly
knee
also says Trump referred to service members who were injured or killed as losers and suckers.
He is asking Americans to put character over policy.
or dares to criticize him,
I've actually just returned from Germany today, and there I was repeatedly asked about
like
this.
judges,
Sort of implying being a dictator.
like journalists,
Mao used language like that. The East German Stasi used language like that.
like nonpartisan election officials.
Trump touting the loyalty of Hitler's generals.
Of a fascist, and revealed that Trump praised Hitler. Trump, a felon who incited a violent coup, say he will govern as a dictator.
Former president is under fire for a video he posted on social media that used language from Nazi Germany. The latest in a series of anti-Semitic and authoritarian statements from Trump and his campaign.
Arguing that Donald Trump is a fascist.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous.
He's now the most dangerous person to this country. He's the most dangerous person ever.
Centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy. Certainly an authoritarian admires people who are dictators. Definition of fascist.
Raising the alarm about the dangers of a possible second Trump term.
That Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
He's authoritarian, it's nationalistic, it's far right, it's intolerant of dissent, it has a contempt for the rule of law. To give you the definition of what fascism is. That is right out of the textbook. Every American that is supporting Trump right now needs to understand that they are absolutely supporting fascism if they vote for Trump.
The man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews.
Sarah. And so Donald Trump can tell a group of supporters that Americans who don't support him are the real enemy.
And hundreds of thousands of Americans.
The enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country, that's a bigger enemy than China and Russia.
This dude even outsourced God to China. So
comparisons to the Nazis, talking about polluting the blood, speaking of Americans as an enemy within. This is all straight from fascism, military dictatorships like Pinochet in Chile, purely authoritarian spectacle.
That Donald Trump is a fascist.
I don't like using those words, but has a strong tendency to authoritarianism and to undermining American democracy. So does Donald Trump believe in democracy, believe in the rule of law? Trump is an authoritarian, does not believe in the rule of law. This is a guy who does not believe in democracy, who is trying to divide us.
He wants to round up his critics and conduct mass deportation raids. He talks like a fascist, he acts like a fascist, he's friends with fascists, he compliments fascists, praised Hitler.
All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is.
Certain aspects of Hitler. He commented more than once, Hitler did some good things. This desire for absolute power, Trump and Hitler. Literally.
Those videos to include references to Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany.
Trump has been conditioning Americans to see violence as something justified. He's been conditioning them to see other Americans as enemies, as diseased, as dirty.
This is a window into who Donald Trump really is.
To say that Trump meets the definition of a fascist and said nice things about Hitler.
And it is clear
he wants to rule without any checks and balances.
That Donald Trump is someone who certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
Without any norms, without any guardrails. Imagine a Nazi movie. Dismantling of institutions.
Genuine aspiration of it. Genuinely
dangerous rhetoric.
An authoritarian projection, tyrants, retribution, locking up the political opposition.
Who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one.
Donald Trump told a story about a dead golfer's penis.
He declared immigrants are poisoning the blood of America. Language similar to what Adolf Hitler once wrote. Phrase often used by the far right as an anti-Semitic slur associated with Nazi Germany and Adolf Hitler's Third Reich, another name for his Nazi regime.
That Trump complained about picking up the tab for a fallen U.S. soldier's funeral, calling her an effing Mexican.
And vowed to use the military as his personal militia.
Wake up screaming at home in your
President
bed.
Trump, a fascist, be the party of more and more violence and more repression.
Power, rule as a dictator over a unified right.
To carry out his personal and political vendettas.
In an infrastructure of repression, camps, and the whole thing is a dystopia
Pandemic-era inflation is way down, unemployment is low, job creation is high, and wages are growing. And no one is talking about a recession anymore.